Good morning.
Good morning.
Sir. So who here is considering a career in firefighting? Who here is considering a career as a career firefighter, not a paid on call? Excellent. So one of the things that you're going to find right now is an excellent opportunity to enter the fire service. All the data out there shows that the fire departments are short of staffing, and so it makes it a little bit easier to get onto a career department. When Lieutenant Kursky and I, Captain Kursky now, when we entered the fire service, it was incredibly competitive. Competitive being approximately 500 applicants for one position. Right now you're lucky if you get 5 applicants for one position. So there's alternate steps you can take, and one of those is going into the military. I started in the fire service when I was 15 years old. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this program, to get an early start on firefighting. So I was 15 when I started. I was 19 when I graduated college and had my associates in fire science, my EMT. Everything I thought that I needed to be a career firefighter. The only problem that I lacked was age. Nobody wanted to hire a 19-year-old, brand new firefighter. So at that point in time, I decided, after taking a couple of tests with cities, and I don't know if any of you know how city tests work. A lot of departments, you take a written test, you take an oral test. On my written test, I scored a 99 out of 100, and on my oral interview, I scored a 98 out of 100. They were hiring 18 people. They had 35 applicants. Guess what? With a 99 and a 98, I didn't get the job, and it was because of age. So with that, I decided my best course of action was to become a military firefighter. And it was a little tricky. Had some changes to it, but it was probably one of the best experiences that you could ever have. One of the main branches in the military, if you want to be a firefighter, would be the Air Force. You can be a firefighter in the Army, you can be a firefighter in the Marines, and you can be a firefighter in the Navy. But in a lot of those jobs, you still have a different primary military occupational skill. In the Marines and in the Army, you're still infantry. So you'll be a firefighter, but you're going to be infantry. With the Air Force, you have one job, and that is that of a firefighter. Okay? I can't talk extensively about the other branches because that's not what I was in. I was in the Air Force. It was 4 years of great time. I happened to be in just before Desert Shield and Storm, and so I deployed during the first Gulf War. But to give you a little bit of an idea, so you're going to graduate from this as a firefighter too. Let's say you went to the recruiter and you said, you know what, the fire service is for me. Make sure you get the guaranteed job entry. If you don't have the guaranteed job entry, you may not get your desired job. When I went into the Air Force, I was guaranteed the fire service. Guess what? I didn't get the fire service. My recruiter lied to me. Instead, I got to be a radio communications operator on board the AWACS aircraft. Does anybody know what that is? What is it?
It's like a plane with a big dish on the top of it.
It is. It's an airborne warning and command system, and it's got a big radar dome on top of it. So I went through about 5 months of training for that, and then found out my first assignment was to Insurlink Turkey on a remote tour. Not the best. They had no overage in the career field, and they said, does anybody want to cross-train? My hand shot up, and what do you want to do? Fire department. Now that career field's full. I want to argue my point. You can go bug the colonel if you want. That was what my instructor said. Went in, reported to the colonel. Now here you are, you're an airman, and you're reporting to a colonel. So you're kind of at like opposite polar ends of the rank structure. Went in, asked him if I could approach, and laid out all my certificates. Showed him that I was fully trained as a firefighter. He looked at it and says, why aren't you in the fire service? And that night, they flew me out to Chanute, which is where all the firefighters are trained. It's an incredible experience. If you're ever considering it, it is incredible. You start out with an 8-week course, kind of like this, except you go 40 hours a week. And remember, you're in the military. So you're still going to have to do all of your military stuff as well. But you're gonna go through 4 blocks. You're gonna go through basic firemanship, you're gonna go through structural block, you're gonna do crash block, you're gonna do medical block, and then you're gonna do a deployment block. But through these blocks, you go in and you work with firefighting. It's a big school like this, only a lot bigger. You're gonna do live burns. You're gonna do structural burns. You're gonna go in and you're gonna do all that. And when you come out of there, you think you know it all. You think you have everything. You're the best of the best. But you're just starting. Then you get to your base. They assign you to a base and you'll deploy to that base and you'll be there for about 2 years. You could be stateside. You could be over in Asia. You could be anywhere that the United States has a base. But the cool thing is, you get to work with aircraft. And aircraft can be a lot of fun. I was assigned to a MAC base. They don't even use these terms anymore because it's been so long. But it was Military Airlift Command, and so we dealt with cargo. So we dealt with the C-5A Galaxy, which, does anybody know what a C-5 is? C-5 is the largest aircraft in the United States inventory. You can put 6 Greyhound buses inside the cargo hold. 2 side by side, 3 deep. Then there's a second story to that C-5, and it'll hold 88 passengers or combat troops. So you can haul a couple of tanks, crew, you can even haul helicopters in the hold of it. So you get to work with these aircraft. The amount of fuel that they carry, the amount of capability that they have is really incredible. Then you can go another route. If you're not on a cargo base, you could be at a fighter base. My last 15 months was spent in Alaska. Okay, I was on a remote little base called Galena. With that, we had 2 aircraft. We had 2 F-15E aircraft. Okay, F-15s are fighter, single pilot fighter aircraft. The nice thing about where I was at, the aircraft were fully armed, 24/7. So they had a full complement of air-to-air missiles, AIM-9s, AIM-7s. So every time we worked with that aircraft, anything that we had to do, it was a fully armed aircraft, which made it really cool. Because we were in the middle of nowhere, all of the landings that were done during the wintertime, because Alaska does get cold, all the landings that we did, the protocol is that the aircraft land and take the barrier. Now what a barrier is you have your runway, and across your runway is a cable. When they land, kind of like what you see in the Navy movies, when they land, they put their tail hook down, they grab the cable, and that's what stops the aircraft. They didn't want them to hit the ice on the runway and slide off. So being the fire department, we have to go out there and we have to get the aircraft out of the barrier, reset the barrier, and await the next aircraft, because combat aircraft always fly in groups of minimum of 2. And so they had to get their partner out, because there was no divert base, they had to land. So that was interesting. Now, how cold do you think the coldest fire can be? We get some cold days in Michigan, right? In Alaska, we, for 90 straight days, never got above 30 below zero. 30 below zero. We never got above that for 90 straight days. Coldest day of the year, we had a structure fire. Reportedly somebody trapped inside. Okay? We responded off base. Actual temperature that day, 69 below zero. Wind chill, 110 below zero. Okay? Think about that. 110 below zero with wind chill. If you're curious or you like to look up stats and everything on your air packs, check out your air packs. Go online. Check out the data on it. See what temperature range they test those air packs to. At that point in time, they weren't covered to that temperature. They hadn't tested them at that temperature. We came off, I was on the rescue at the time. We came off the rescue. We had really old Scott air packs. And
we looked at last week, the week before.
That's what we used. Well, we came off, we were already on air because we knew we were going in for a rescue. Our condensation immediately froze the air pack, the exhalation diaphragm on it. So we pulled our masks away from our face, got into the house. It was on fire and there was somebody inside. Pulled the masks away, got inside, masks thawed up, dropped our mask back on, continued our search. Found the person. Came out of the building, now we wore silvers because we were aircraft crash, but we also did structural. Came out to report what we had going on, went to bend my elbow. Guess what? My elbow wouldn't bend, it was frozen. Had to go back in, thaw out, get your arms where you can get it out, come out, and get into something dry. From that incident, we ended up having to put all of our hose onto a flatbed semi. It was frozen. We couldn't roll it, couldn't do anything. It took 3 days to thaw our hose. So the Air Force can be really exciting. If you like aircraft, if you think you like aircraft, you'll love the job. Being around the aircraft. I was fortunate, I was assigned to the rescue crew. Rescue in the Air Force is kind of an elite position because of what you get to do. When you go into the aircraft, you're the crew that goes to the flight deck. You're the crew that's responsible for aircraft shutdown. On fighter aircraft, you're the one that's responsible for, your crew of 3 is responsible for getting the pilot out of the cockpit. You get to see some really cool things. When I was assigned to Pope, which was my first duty station, it's in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Rescue crew, our base had a policy, the rescue crew, within 10 minutes of a transient aircraft, an aircraft that wasn't normally assigned to our base, after they shut down engines, we were to immediately go on and get a familiarization of the aircraft. So, I mean, I've been on Air Force 2. Did not make Air Force 1 because it never showed up at one of my duty stations. Air Force 2, the AC-130 gunship. AWACS, of course, all the cargo aircraft, and several of the fighters. Really cool. During TDY, which is a temporary duty down to Honduras, did a 4-month tour down there, and indescribable. What we got to do, we also had an AC-130 gunship come down to train, and during that time, we actually got to fly with them too. Does anybody know what an AC-130 gunship is? AC-130 gunship is a C-130 aircraft that is heavily armed on one side. This aircraft has been in service in different variants since Vietnam. They call it Spooky or Spectre. With this aircraft, the whole left side of the aircraft has cannons, Gatling guns, armament that you would never imagine. It flies around a position in a bank, and there's a command pod in the back, and they operate all the munitions. They can heavily defend. If you've got troops in harm's way, we've never lost the battleground where a gunship has been in position. So it's really cool. They can literally take, and in just a moment's time, fill a football field with high explosive rounds. Every square foot of that football field can be covered. It's incredible. Now, 4 years in the Air Force, what does it do for you? It gives you impeccable training. They don't fight many fires, so they train every single day. That means laying hose, advancing lines. Again, they don't fight a lot of fires, but when they do fight fires, they're bigger, more intensive fires. Be it structural in base housing, a base is just like a city. Better code enforcement, but just like a city. Or you get an aircraft incident. And the aircraft incidents are the ones that will be an event you won't forget. An aircraft crash is a significant event. Now, once this is done, you have a couple of options. One, you can stay 20 years in the fire service, in the military, and retire from it. 2, you can get out and go to apply at some of these cities. You will find that if you can write a test, you're going to finish in the top category. You're going to likely get a job. With me, as I told you, I wrote a good test, still didn't get a job. Came out of the Air Force, the first department I tested for was number 1 on their list and was hired. I didn't test in any other departments. So that's where it benefits you. The third option, if you want to do 4 years in the military fire department, and you like what you're doing, but you don't want to stay military, you don't want to deploy, then you can attempt to cross over and become a civilian firefighter on a military base. With that, you still do the same job,
but you're not military. You come to work every day just like a normal fire department, and you go home to your family. So those are some good options. Does anybody have any questions? I know we're wrapping up. Yes?
So you would be stationed in a military base and respond to local emergencies, not just military activities?
It depends. It depends on the base. There are some very proactive bases, and there's some very non-proactive bases, just like in the fire service. So a lot of the bases do have mutual aid where they respond off base to the local communities. Face it, the base is typically the biggest structure, so a lot of the departments around the base are paid on call or pure volunteer. You see out west, a lot of military Air Force firefighters, they will be helping with the wildland firefighting. Because one of the big things that the Air Force has is pump and roll capability. A lot of fire departments, most of the trucks out here, except for the brush trucks, you don't have pump and roll capability. Pump and roll is where you can drive and pump at the same time. With the Air Force, all of our trucks, except the city pumpers, are pump and roll capability. Because when we have an aircraft crash, our big crash trucks, we call it modulating around the fire. They're 6-wheel drive Oshkosh trucks, and we go around the fire and spray the fire with the turf. So, works out well. Any other questions? Excellent. You guys have a great day. So drive safe. The roads are getting bad.
Getting there, see that it's snowing. Chief, thanks for coming out, talking to the gang. We have a couple minutes to hang out, if anyone wants to talk to you privately.
Sure.
Alright. So, Howell folks, you are done. Chief, we will be hanging out for this couple minutes and everything. And, so Howell folks out first. We gotta be back for third period, as soon as they scooch. Then we'll,